Are you looking for inspiration on a daily basis? Well, check out Deal to Heal Tees. With our inspirational tees, you're sure to find something that will inspire you. Just go to dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. That's Deal to Heal Tees. Get some inspiration in your situation. Wear inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That's Deal to Heal Tees at dealtohealtees.myshopify.com. Hey guys, this is Earnest James, host of the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and I got a question to ask you. Could you buy me a cheeseburger? Better yet, could you buy me a value meal? Yes? Well, guess what? I don't need a value meal. However, for the cost of a value meal, you can support this podcast to keep us on the air. Just go to Patreon/Deal to Heal podcast and choose any one of the 3 tiers that's available. And if you just want to make a one-time donation, go to Cash App and make a donation to $EJames, the number 418. Make a one-time donation to the Cash App, or again, go to Patreon to support this podcast and keep us on the air. Thanks in advance. Be blessed. Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Welcome. This is the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James, aka Friend to Fatherless Daughters. And I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, listen, like, subscribe, and share. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to get those numbers up. And today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest. So we're going to jump right into Mr. Derrick Jones. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good, man. I'm good. First of all, let me say thank you for tuning in. Well, not tuning in. Thank you for coming on the show to be a guest, because I know you could be doing anything else, but you are here with us, and we definitely appreciate it.
Definitely. More than happy to be here. It's been a long time coming, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, we've been trying to hook up, and there's one thing after another, but hey, we're here now. So, man, let's jump right in it. First of all, introduce yourself to the listeners and tell us exactly what it is that you do.
Well, my name is Derrick Jones, and I am a certified life and relationship coach, but specifically emphasizing more so on the relationship aspect of it. So I have a life coaching business. I also have the Relationship Gumbo podcast, which is partnered in with that. That airs every Wednesday at 8 p.m. And we just talk about the word gumbo. From Relationship Gumbo, it's just really about all of us being a kind of a mix of things and ingredients, and we have to kind of come together and see how that little recipe works. And sometimes you got to take some things out, sometimes you got to put some things in, test it out, might not taste too good. So I wanted to really drill down on areas that a lot of people miss, those little things that you miss that might change the trajectory of your relationship. I try to pinpoint those things. It's an occupational hazard from being an engineer. I look for the problems and I find solutions. So it goes hand in hand. So that's in a nutshell what I do. I just try to help people heal. I try to help people see things they don't normally see so that they can make better decisions.
Okay, cool. You kind of jumped on me a little bit because that was gonna be one of my first questions. I was gonna ask where the name came from. But before we do that, I got one other question that I want to ask before we get into that because I know you are a girl dad, like myself. So whenever I have a girl dad on, I ask them two questions. Number one, what does it mean to you to be a girl dad and that experience? And then number two is tell us something that your daughter has taught you.
So the first question, what does it mean? It's like it's something that I never thought that I would feel or experience being a girl dad. But now, like even with what I do with relationship coaching, right? And I get to see the end results of a lot of where women go and who they become. And I get the unique opportunity to be on the front end of that, to try to nurture and try to help her become the best version of herself as she can with the actual present father in the home, a present father that's involved with her emotionally, as well as just being present and providing and all that other stuff. I'm there for her emotionally as well, because that's one of the sort, as you know, one of the things that a lot of women that don't have dads, or even if they have a dad that's not present, it's something that's missing. And then I'm talking to these women at age 45 and the sting is still there. The decisions are being made based on that. And I'm like, I know I can't control everything in her future, but I want to give her a foundation. And I think that that's one of the greatest things that I can give to her. And it also gives back to me because I get to see her actually experiencing the growth in the payback from that, and her literally thanking me. Like, she's only 13, but she's like, "Thank you, Dad, for what you do for me." And I'm like, that's the payoff right there.
Right.
The second question, what have I learned from her? What day of the week are we talking about? So, my daughter, she's taught me, as a lot of parents experience, she's taught me patience. Probably more than I normally have a lot of patience, but the things that she's going through now as a new teenager, and just really understanding that the biggest thing is understanding that these kids now aren't the same kid that was like in the 70s and the 80s. So you got to have a little more temperament and patience with them, because they're really in tune with their feelings and they want to share stuff. And you have to kind of mute down that iron fist that we grew up with, like, yes, do this and do that. And she's like, but why? And I'm like, I got to tell you why. So it's like, you have to understand that they're growing up in a different world. And you kind of have to kind of mold yourself to that, so that she understands that you're trying to allow her to have a voice. And the things that I didn't grow, we would just say, do it. There was no voice. So now I'm letting her know, you're still the daughter, I'm the dad, but I want to hear how you feel. That's the difference. That's what I've learned from her, is to just really be more understanding and patient.
Yeah, man, I love it. I love it. My baby just made. I still call her my baby. She just made 19 last month. So she ain't no little baby no more. But she's still my baby. She's my only biological child that I have. And yeah, so that's an experience. You know what I mean? Watching them grow up. Trying to lead them, and like you said, especially me being in a similar field. With what I do with the Friends of Fatherless Daughters program that I have. So with me talking to that, generally I'm talking to women also that are older now, and so to be able to see what that looks like for a father to be present or not to be present, and the effects that it has on a woman or a daughter, I definitely try to be more mindful, with my daughter, to instill the things that I know that can become a hardship, later on. So yeah, I definitely love those answers, man. I love to have those conversations whenever I have a girl dad on, just to get that point of view and to sort of let the daughters hear, the hearts of a father, because all the time they don't hear that. And definitely, our fatherless daughters, I still kind of struggle with that a little bit, because I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, to allow them to hear a father talk about his daughter when they don't necessarily have that relationship. But I still think it's good for everybody to hear it.
It's good. It's good. Yeah, I think it's good because they get to see a different type of man that may inform even who they choose. Even
Right,
at this
right.
at this
Okay.
older age, right? You still get to see how he treats his kids. It gets to let you kind of get a kind of a view of this is might be the type of man that I want to add into my family. Um, whether they have a young kid or whether they're contemplating on having one, now you get to actually see that there are men out here that actually care, that's in the trenches, that's doing the work. So I think it's important for everybody to hear.
Okay, cool. Well, that makes me feel a lot better. I mean, I love to have the discussion myself and put it out there, but that was just something that I always kind of thought about, sort of in the back of my mind. But yeah, you're right. You're right to be able to have that example of what it should be and what it should sound like and look like. So definitely,
Yeah.
thank you for that. So we're gonna jump back into it. You had already got started because again, I was gonna ask you where the name came from.
Mhm.
And so now that I understand a little bit about that. One of the other questions that I have: how long have you been doing this, and what made you get into the relationship field?
Okay, so like I said earlier, I'm an engineer by trade, right? I've been with NASA for like 23 years now. I'm not going nowhere. I'm still gonna ride that out till the wheels fall off.
Right,
Unless
right.
something magical happens, like some falls out the sky in my lap, then I'll be more than happy to leave. But right now I'm there. So people are like, engineer, relationship coach, like how does this happen? And what I found, as a lot of people who work in my field, they tend to be a little more introverted. They tend to be a little more, they're in the computer, but they don't necessarily tend to be as social. And so what I found over time, because I was that guy, but in my field initially of just helping people and getting that response back from them, it did something to me. It made me feel that satisfaction, that gratitude of actually helping them with the technical stuff made me feel a sense of accomplishment. And so as I got older, as I began to grow into myself, I really started loving being around people, even though I still was kind of introverted. I still was like, I like this feeling of being around people and helping people. Then I kind of, years and years later, I knew I had a gift of being able to take everyday things and translate them into language that people could understand, even if they couldn't necessarily get it. I had a talent for taking technical things and making it sound in a way that everybody can digest, right? So I was like, there's a sense of validation and purpose that I got from it, but I didn't know how to package it or anything. And I was like, I really like almost like teaching and coaching, but I wasn't a coach yet. So I was like, well, I went along, and me and my wife, we started a few businesses, and every business we had that involved other people, I would always be the one coaching them, even though I wasn't the guy. I would be the one saying, "No, this is what he really meant. Look at it this way." And they'd be like, "I've been doing this for 10 years, and I finally I'm getting it now." And I'm like, "There's something to that." So I started a business called, and it'll wrap up real fast. I started a business called Card Logic, and Card Logic was this way that I could translate things visually for people using playing cards. So I would set up all these different analogies, like you got the color, the red and the black, you got the fake, the back of the card and the front of the card. So I'm like, okay, all the back of the cards represent men, all the cards flipped over represent women. This is, and I used to do these elaborate things, and people would be like, oh my God, for visual thinkers, and visual learners. And I was like, this is cool. However, it's a hard elevator pitch. You can't tell somebody what this is in a couple of sentences. They actually have to see it. So when I would tell people about it, they would be like, what? Cards? What do you, poker? What do you do? So it frustrated me. A lot of people were like, yeah, this ain't gonna work. I don't know what you're doing, but this ain't it. And so I went back to the drawing board and I said, I gotta narrow the focus. What am I really good at? So I'm looking over my life and my relationships and how I've helped other people with theirs. And my life is a cautionary tale. That's a whole nother two shows in itself. But I've done some things. I've graduated from those things, but the way that my mind works, I'm able to translate all of that. And so I was like, this is probably where I need to be. And it's not visual. So now I can start a podcast, because I wanted to start a podcast before, but I'm like, they can't see the card. So I was like, not only am I narrowing my focus, but now I can start a podcast. So all of this combined up to now is probably about 3 years. So the coaching, well, no, we're coming up on, wow, COVID. So we're coming up on, no, this is like 4 now. So because the Relationship Gumbo podcast is going on in January of next year, to be 3 years. So 3 years I've been doing the coaching. So, and it's been great. I have no complaints. It's very fulfilling. It feels purposeful, and I'm really helping a lot of people. So if I had to choose between the engineering and the coaching, it would definitely be the coaching, because of the fulfillment I get out of it. But I still got to make sure this house taken care of. So
right. Oh, believe me, I understand. So I'm a bricklayer by trade, and so I'm in construction. So I definitely understand. Some got to pay the bills until the podcast can. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So with you helping with relationships, so do you only focus on like romantic relationships, or is it relationships in general, but also, romantic?
Primarily romantic. So we're talking about singles, relationships, couples, marriage, divorce, and those type of things. That's where I believe most of my talent lies. I can do the other stuff, but I think that for my skill set, the romantic relationships for me is paramount, not just because I'm good at it, but because I'm a firm believer in building community, building families, and stopping all of this mess of the black male and female going like, in other directions and fighting each other and blaming and all the blame game. And I'm like, no, wait. Y'all not listening to each other. This is how you got to, get it together so that y'all can, like, how we gonna make babies? How we gonna, if y'all not messing with each other, what are we doing? So that's one of the things that made me want to do this, because I'm like, yo, if y'all step outside yourself, the fix is not that hard. Like this, just look at it this way. So that really drives me, because we all can see the separation, and that's not going to get us too much for, it's not going to get us far. We talking about generations. We trying to make sure that this thing stays solid.
Right. So you hit on two things that I want to mention. First of all, what I want to say is, I think part of some of our issues, or one of our issues or lack thereof, and what would be a benefit for us as a community would be seeking outside help, because sometimes we just don't see eye to eye, and we so busy in ourselves that we can't see what the other person is trying to say. So that I definitely want to point that out with your work that you do, and not just what you do, but just outside, whether it's counseling or therapy, whatever. I know as a culture, a lot of times we look, we kind of shun away from it. It's becoming more accepted now, more of a topic, and I hope that it's not just the hot topic of the time. What I mean? Because it definitely is something that we need as a culture to embrace, as an everyday thing. But one of the other things that you mentioned, what I got from what you just said was communication, because I think that a lot of the issues that we have in relationships is the lack of communication, and mainly the lack of being able to hear. I think a lot of time we listen to respond and not listen to understand. And so we listening to what you say, but we're not really listening. We just waiting for the pause so we can jump in. You know what I mean? And say whatever it is that that we trying to say to try to get our point across. So what would you say? I mean, I know that's kind of cliche that we talk about communication probably is like the biggest factor, but I believe it is. But what would you say would be one of the biggest hindrances to relationships, our man and woman relationships? Like I said, I think it's communication, but it could be something else. So what do you think?
I think the biggest thing is communication. I think the second biggest thing ties into what you were talking about possibly getting outside help, is really understanding who we are instead of who we want the person that we're with or the world to perceive us as. Is really getting in tune with who you are, so that when you get into a relationship, you're showing up as you. That person gets to fall in love with you. The communication part of it is so like it's the easiest and the hardest thing to do, because we all come to the table with a bunch of stuff, experiences and traumas and all this other stuff. And then you try to pair with another person that has their own set of stuff. And based on what you dealt with in your past, you might not want to listen. You might want to just kind of, bulldoze your way in. Well, guess what happens when you bulldoze your way in? There's another person on the other side that may be hurt by what you're doing, but maybe they may not want to tell you because they don't want to rock the boat. So now they're sitting on that. So now we really not communicating the way we should. And that other person that's sitting there trying to keep the peace is building resentment over time. Now they mad. Now they don't even want to deal with you no more. And the solution was simply just to be able to hear each other and to really respect each other and understand that certain things, certain tones hurt. A lot of men not going to say you hurt my feelings when you yelled at me, but you're going to hold on to that 100, 200 times until next thing you know, you like, man, I'm not like, let me just sit in the driveway for another 30 minutes because I don't even want to go in there. When the inside of the home isn't peaceful, the only place that you can go to get peace is outside, and that's where all the mess happens. So,
So you said two things I want to touch on real quick. One of them, I remember when what was the movie Hustle and Flow? When the movie Hustle and Flow came out, and I remember watching Terrence Howard, and he was doing a interview, and he talked about an experience he had when he was younger, and I think it was a gentleman had told him this phrase or whatever, and what he said to him was, the person who cares the least will control the relationship, because the person who cares the most will always be trying to compensate, to keep that other person happy. And I think about that because one of my things that I teach, and I definitely believe is, one of the biggest things we can do to help our relationships is to focus, right? Focus on the right things. And so I always say my focus in the relationship should be, what can I do to make this other person's life better? And if that's my focus, is making sure that their life is better, and their focus is making sure that my life is better, then we're going to meet each other's needs. You know what I mean? But I think a lot of times we focus too much on ourselves, and then it's like, well, I'm not getting what I want, and I'm not getting, but we're so busy focused on what we're not getting that we're not giving neither, so definitely I think that's a big thing, to come into a relationship with that mindset that it's not about me, it's about the person that I say I love, and giving them what it is that they need.
Yeah, and you want to know the irony in that, what you just said about the person that cares the least. When we talk about people, and I'll use this word loosely because I know it's used a lot, and maybe not in the best ways, but you use the word like narcissist, and people that typically don't have a lot of empathy, they care less. Those people will try to find people who care a lot, right? And so because they know that those people who care a lot are going to cater to them so much that they're not even going to worry about themselves. And that is the thing that I always try to tell people when I coach them. You can still care, but have barriers for entry. Like they can't just get it all up front because you already know that you're a person that's super empathetic and you want to save everybody. Okay, cool. You're going to have to vet everybody, no matter how cute they are, the same way. They don't get it all. And it's unfortunate because those of us that are the most caring are the ones that get hurt the most, because we find ourselves finding people that we want to, people pleasers. We want to find people that we can help out because we're just these are the people that get crushed I'm one of them.
Yeah, I
I
feel
had
you.
to,
I feel you. You know, because we those of us who have hearts for people like myself and you, who would dedicate our life and do dedicate our lives to helping other people. A lot of times we have to realize that we can't save everybody.
right.
And it's kind of a hard lesson to learn for us. And I speak for myself, definitely kind of a hard lesson to learn,
Mm-hmm.
that you can't help everybody, and then also that everybody don't want to be helped.
Yep.
Like you said,
Very
there are
true.
people that look for people that they can get over on, that look for people that they can control, and even on the other side of that, there are some people who love being victims,
Yep.
because victimhood get them attention, it gets them emotional or whatever, they're getting the attention that they want from the other person. So we can't save everybody. But
Yeah.
that's kind of a hard lesson to, a hard pill to swallow
Oh, it is
at
very
times.
hard.
So, you got to kind of choose choose your battles, as they say,
Very hard.
and try to help who we can help. Um, Definitely, and I think one of the other things, even going back to what we were talking about, with the narcissist or whatever, I think that one of the things that we have to learn, as in relationships, is to be able to solve the problems that we have, without or just being able to solve problems in a good manner, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because I think a lot of times, a lot of problems that we have, if we took the time to actually focus on the problem,
Mm-hmm.
we could fix it, and it could save a whole lot of
Yep.
relationships.
Yep.
Just in that what they would call conflict resolution.
Yep.
To be
Yep.
able to
Yep.
come to the table and say, okay, what is the real problem? I know
Yeah.
I'm mad at you, but I'm not mad at you personally. I'm mad at something that you did. And to be able to look and say, first of all, why does that affect me, that I feel this way about it? And then if I can explain that to you, why it hurts me, then maybe it'll help you to understand why, you should change that. You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yep. Yeah. That's probably one of the biggest lessons that most of us have to learn is to attack the problem and not the person. Because you see the person every day, so it's hard not to say, you didn't do this. And it's like, wait,
Mhm.
your voice elevated, you kind of yelling a little bit because you
Right,
upset. But the only other person that I can reference that type of tone to is my mom. You're not that.
right,
so
right.
so we gonna have to. I'm the tone police. I got a badge and everything. Like, you gonna have to bring it down a little bit because I can't. It's gonna I can't take that yelling. That's a trigger for me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's not a good one. That's not a good one. So let's switch it up a little bit. So I don't know if you're an author. I actually was going to
No,
ask you that.
no.
Did you know?
I
Okay,
should be, but I'm not.
should be okay. Well, hey, we're speaking into existence. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So one of my is I have two books when we talk about relationships, and when I talk to other people about relationships, two books that I definitely recommend. One of them is called Love and Respect, which is a
Mhm.
great book. It's awesome. And the other ones, which I know you've heard of, is the Love Languages,
Absolutely.
which definitely is a book that I believe in.
Yes.
So seeing that you know about it, I want to ask you if you could add another love language that you think would be helpful, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good question, man. And I'm normally not stumped ever. Uh, Another love language. Uh, I think a lot like the five love languages speak to things that tend to be a little more tangible.
Mhm.
And I think maybe if I was to add another one, that it would probably be something that tapped more into the emotional side of us, right? Because we're talking
Mhm.
about, touch and words of affirmation. But I think maybe, I don't know what I would call it, but something that would help, that receiving would make me connect to you more emotionally versus, some of the gift giving and all these other things.
Right.
If there was something that tend to tap into the emotional part of me more, I think that would probably be the only other thing that I would add.
Yeah, and you know, I agree with that because I think if we could add anything, a maybe a chapter on the emotional and not just the emotional part of it, but the self awareness of your own emotions. You know what I'm
Right,
saying,
right.
and
Yep.
being able to understand why it is that the things that you are attracted to. You know, and
Right.
being able to and kind of going back to that communication too, being able to communicate those things and communicate
Mhm.
those ideas. And I think a lot of it, definitely since I've been kind of the last year or so into the personal development space,
Mhm.
with myself, and definitely I think that that's a big plus to anybody that's working, towards anything. But that helps you get into not only to your mental space and understanding yourself, but definitely to get in contact with your emotional self too. And I think especially as men, that's a part of us that we don't often talk about. You know what I'm saying? We don't deal with it. We don't talk about it, and we kind of shy away from it. And I think that that's one of the biggest things with community, as men, which is definitely something that I'm big on. I know you mentioned it earlier, to have these conversations with men where men are able
Yeah.
to talk, and I know
Yeah.
one of my earlier podcasts, I talked about, building these safe spaces,
Mhm.
for men, and to be able to have this space where it's okay that we share how we feel,
Right.
and I talked about, if you don't have that space, then maybe it's up to you to create it,
Yep.
to
Yep.
become that friend that says, hey, if something's going on, call me. You know what I mean? If something, you're dealing with something, call me. And
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. And I know, if I'm not mistaken, you are a part of a podcast where it
Yes.
was a couple of gentlemen,
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
were
The real
talking.
shop talk. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, tell me a
We
little bit about that.
so we curated a online space where we just kind of spoke as Black men from our hearts. We talk about topics, and again, with the focus on community building, and how we can help other men see themselves in us and actually see, because what I've realized in being in this space is men want to share.
Mhm.
They just want to, they a lot of times they want to see that it's okay. They want to see other men doing it, and then they're like, okay, now I feel connected to them. So let me go ahead and say me too now.
Right.
Even on this app, Clubhouse, right? I have a love-hate relationship with it, but when you go in these rooms, these men will pour their guts out because they're hearing other men talk about these subjects that they don't normally get to do in their everyday life. And it's amazing to hear it and to see it, because we know that this doesn't happen normally in our everyday lives. And so when we made that the real shop talk, it really was a space where, all five of us were willing to put our hearts and our vulnerability on the line, so that people can see that there are men out here that's not trying to fight women, that's not trying to,
Mm.
put out all of this rhetoric about what you should and shouldn't be. We're human. We relegate this emotional space to women, but we're human too. And it's just kind of that thing. So I'm not current, I literally did my last show with that yesterday, but that was because I only have a certain amount of bandwidth, and I got stuff that I need to work on and do.
Right.
And I was like, I gotta take something off my plate or I'm gonna explode. So that was one of the several things that I had to kind of back away from. But I'm still connected to them. We're still community. I'm still gonna, pop up on the show now and then. But being like the integral part of the machine, I couldn't. It wasn't enough space for me. But I hold space for these things on my show as well. There's always spaces, and then I put myself in different arenas too. So I kind of move around. But yeah, for me, being one of those men that's not afraid to share my story, to share my vulnerability, we just got to put ourselves in position and be the change that we know that we need, not just for ourselves, but our families and our daughters. They need to see us do this too.
Right.
Because there's a lot like these women that I have in my sphere as far as like the coaching and all of that. They're like, yo, I've never met a man that told me how he feel. And I'm like, never? And they're like, yeah, I don't even think they exist. And I'm like, they do. We out here and we working on it. We got a mission. We gonna try to elicit some change. It may not be the world, but we gonna take care of what we can take care of.
Yeah, well, I always say you can't change the world, but you can change your world. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Not you can't change, but you may not change the world, you know, but you can change your world. Exactly. And then definitely, I agree with you 100%, man. I think, you know, it's up to us to build those rooms and to build those spaces that, you know, the other men feel free to talk about some things. And that's why I talk about a lot of things on my podcast. And even I've, you know, been on other podcasts and definitely share about things that I've been through with depression and you know, suicidal thoughts and, you know, debt and divorce and the whole world of that. You know, I'm very vocal about it because I know I'm not the only one that's been through it, you know, and like you said, it's up to us to make those spaces to make it okay, you know, because we want to say something, you know, and you can tell because we quick to throw a joke, you know what I'm saying? You joke about something, everybody quick to throw a joke in. So we just got to make it that it's okay to talk about some serious things, to talk about some things that's really meaningful in our lives, you know. And so that's why I really like the platform that you guys built, you know, and I'm connected to some of them guys in the speaking space and everything, and definitely going to have some of them on here. But before I go, I'm gonna let you have the last word and give some advice. But I just want to throw this little thing that I do when I'm talking about relationships, right? So this little, I guess you call it a story that I like to put out there. So we hear a lot of times when I'm talking to women and some women, and that you hear the old thing that all men are dogs, right? And so I tell women, say, well, if all men are dogs, then you need to be careful of the kind of dog that you choose, right? So we got four different types of dogs that you should be looking for if all men are dogs and you got to deal with a dog anyway. So one of them would be the seeing eye dog, because the seeing eye dog leads and he guides. Right. So if you're going to deal with a dog anyway, then you look for a CNI dog. The other one would be the canine. The canine, which is the police dog, because he protects. Right. So he protect your home. The third one would be the hunter. Right. Because he goes out, he hunts, and he brings back the food. So he provides. So we got the CNI dog, we got the canine, we got the hunter. What was my last one? I can't think of what. My mind just went blank. But those three is good. So I would say if you have to deal with dogs, if you believe that all men are dogs, then there's several kind of dogs that you should be looking for. You know, and I definitely don't believe that, and I don't think most women believe that. But I think a lot of times they just repeat, or I don't even want to say repeat, regurgitate what's been, you know, deposited into them back out into the world. So
I have to
go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was saying a lot of times, just because of how analytical my brain is at all times, I always have to kind of gut check these women when they say this, because I hear it a lot, and I'm like, okay, so all men are dogs, right? So how often have you dated in your specific geographical area around your house? And they'll say, yeah, I go to the same bar every Friday and I meet guys every now and then and we date. I met some good ones. And I said, okay, you lived in the same city your whole life. How many men have you dated in a serious relationship that wasn't in your geographical immediate region? Well, none. So if you've only been going to the same bar in the same city every week, how could you possibly have the experience to know that not you can't even say most. You can't even say 50 men are dogs. So stop. Just stop. Like, seriously, like you can't. I get so upset when people speak in absolutes like all, because I'm like, no, your little experience, even if you took you and 10 of your girlfriends, it's still a small sample size. Like, you can't, you stop. It drives me nuts. And I always have to bring them back to, and I'm like, and furthermore, if every man in your little geographical area is treating you bad, but you still fish in that same pond, you're probably going to be single. You're not even going 30 minutes up the road to go be seen. It's insane to me.
Yeah, and I always say, if you're constantly having bad relationships one after another, then you got to look at the common denominator. You know what I'm saying? And then that goes into, number one, accountability, which is almost a curse word in some spaces, but we got to talk about accountability, and then dealing with the hurts of your past and the things that you're bringing from one relationship to another, the baggage that you carry, and a lot of times men and women don't want to do that work, don't want to do that hard work. And it makes it hard. It makes it hard for those of us who care, and want to see you do better. Because a lot of times some people just don't want to do the work, and it's unfortunate. But Derrick, again, man, I thank you so much for being on, man. Thank you for, giving us a little bit of your time. So I'm going to let you have the last word. First of all, tell us where we can find you at, how anyone can work with you if they're looking for you, and then any last words that you might want to have.
I'll say, well, first, you can find me at my website, relationshipgumbo.info, and that will funnel you to all the social media, with the emphasis on Instagram, because I do a lot of pop-up lives on there. They're unannounced, but they're very impactful, a little less scripted than the actual podcast. And then YouTube is where I do the live podcast every Wednesday. So everything is live in real time. I have guests sometimes I'm solo, but it's always good content. And this is how we network and connect with people. And I'm sure at some point we're gonna have you on the show, sir.
Oh, so definitely.
We're gonna save you a spot. And a last word, I guess. I would just say overall from the whole conversation, just for your listeners and anybody else that would listen, you really have to really be intentional about A, what you want out of a relationship. And B, you have to really look at yourself to see what you are bringing to the relationship. And a lot of times we look at what we're getting, but when you look at what you have to offer now, you really got to look at yourself. You can't just say I'm cute. You just can't say I got a lot of money. What are you, if you didn't have the money, sir, if you didn't have the butt, ma'am, what else do you bring? And I'm not gonna say bring to the table because I hate that. But what else are you bringing? What else are you bringing to the relationship that makes you valuable to another human being? And hopefully that other person is doing that inner work as well. But I guess my biggest thing is just you really gotta focus on who you are. Find that out. It's a lot of people that's in their 50s right now don't even know who they are. And it takes time. It takes time for you to got to go through the mud and figure out where you've been and what your patterns are and why am I like this? Why have I been single for 10 years? You're going to have to do some investigative work before you can show up and be effective with somebody else.
Yeah, and that's 100%. Yeah, like I said before, I think a lot of people just don't want to do the work, but you have to make up your mind what it is that you want. If you want a good relationship, you want a meaningful, healthy relationship, then you're going to have to do the work starting with yourself, So, yeah. So, man, again, Derrick, thank you so very much for being on, man. I definitely glad. And we're going to keep our ear out for that book because I know it's coming, sooner or later. I'm putting it out there, you know what I'm saying? And when you write it, you know what I'm saying, hit me up and we'll be back on here to talk about it,
Will do. Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, thank you so very much for blessing us with your presence and your expertise. Again, everybody, this is the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, and our mission is to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Make sure you guys listen, like, subscribe, and share to the podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, and everywhere else, on Facebook. You can find us everywhere. Deal to Heal with E. James Podcast. Until next time, we will see you guys next week. We out of here.
All right.
Hey guys, I know you're enjoying the podcast. However, don't forget to join our text line at 866-326-0730. That's 866-326-0730 in order to receive text messages with new events and things that is going on and new episodes as they release. All right, see you in a minute. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.